Okay, gents, let's now focus on a big game coming up this weekend in the Premier League. Arsenal against Manchester United. It's the clash of the informed clubs. And before we focus on this, the X's and O's and the game in particular, big picture question here to you guys. Who will be a better team long term? Who will be more successful, Arsenal or Manchester United? Because I feel like they've both got their projects going. Yes, Arsenal are a few years ahead of Man United. It feels like United are Arsenal a few years ago, but which team has the most upside in their project? Who can have some sustained success? Nick, I'm going to come to you because you gave me a kind of a confused look there. So I feel like it is quite a difficult question to get that crystal ball out. But I think it's quite a good one to think about the levels they can reach, right, as clubs, because we always think Arsenal, Man United are here. But I think in actuality, it's probably a bit different on what levels they can actually reach as clubs.
I am going to both channel and anger all my beloved friends in the Buffalo Gooners because I've heard them say this for a long time. Arsenal can achieve great things. They can become spectacular. I need to know the owner is going to spend to keep these players around when they become those assets. When Man City comes calling for Bukayo Saka, will they resist selling him for 140 million or whatever it is? The flip side of this is Manchester United, I firmly believe, and it hurts me to say this because they're not my club, I think they're perhaps the biggest brand in the world. And if they're going to get the investment and they're clearly open to getting new investment, I expect them to become big spenders again. And now they have a coach. So
Yes.
my bet is on Man United. And I honestly, it's a great question, but as I talk myself through it, I don't know if it's close.
Yeah, you got there in the end with Ten Hag to me, Nick, and I said it before this season. If you have just any manager, any regular manager, you're just any regular club. If you have a special manager, a special person in charge, you can be a special club. Jurgen Klopp has been that for Liverpool, obviously. Guardiola, Arteta this season has ascended to that for Arsenal and is obviously doing great things. But if you believe in Erik Ten Hag, and I think we all probably do at this point, the way he has handled numerous controversies and dramas that have gone on in that team in the half a season that he's been in charge, gotten them to the point that they're at right now, has them looking very functional. A favorite for top four now, I would say. I think that should be pretty comfortable for them. Then I think they've got that person in charge. And then it's just about everything else that you said, Nick. The size of the club, the pull, players that have the opportunity, and I'm sorry to the Arsenal fans, players that have the opportunity to go to Arsenal or have the opportunity to go to Manchester United, you give them the same money on both sides. They're going to Manchester United. They just are. And so when it comes to that point, and this is best case scenario for Arsenal, we're not even talking about selling players to Manchester City. We're talking about them being the 1 or 2 team in the Premier League and battling with City and United and Chelsea for players in the transfer market. I think they come out fourth of all of those clubs. And so they're going to be limited. I think they're going to be very good for a very long time because of how young they are, if they can keep that squad together. But also, United have some veterans, I think, in key positions that can make them competitive over the next couple of years in a way that I think Arsenal might hit a ceiling.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was going to be my point there in terms of the Arsenal are going to be great in the short term. And to Nick's point, can they keep that team together? I think they might be able to because they seem to enjoy playing together as a unit in the group. And Arteta has done a wonderful job to get them in this position they're in right now. But with Man United, now they've figured things out in terms of the coaching, the recruitment looks spot on. That's only going to get better with more money as well and the pull, like you guys mentioned. But the fact that Man United don't have to wait for a Bukayo Saka or a Martinelli to hit the kind of form they're in now. They don't have to wait a few years for that. If they have a need with the money that's going to be coming into the club, they can just buy an experienced player. Like we've seen Varane, we've seen the impact Casemiro's had this season. And they can just go out and do that as well as develop good young players and bring them into the first team as well. So they can kind of have that two-pronged approach where I think Arsenal are just limited to buying those players from other superstars clubs that maybe haven't quite met their potential as youngsters, and Arsenal can take them as a project and develop them. And it's going to take a bit longer. And I just don't think they're in the same realm as Manchester United when it comes to spending right now. And even in the future, the gap's going to get bigger. So unless something drastically happens for Arsenal on the ownership side of things and their model changes drastically, and it could, getting in the Champions League year after year makes a big difference. But I think short term, Arsenal are set up for more success, but longer term, we're talking 3 to 5 to 7 years. Then Manchester United, I think, will have more success. But that's our opinion. So I'm sure every Arsenal fan will agree with us in the comments. So looking forward to that. But that's a good question. I think it's a good question right now as these two teams square off, and they've been so successful over the history of the Premier League. It's good to see them both in the situation they're in right now. They figured it out. They've got great coaches, great players. Let's see who can actually make the most of this momentum they've given themselves. But if we look at this game in particular, Nick, Arsenal against Man United, Arteta's side, I mean, they're confident, right? They're flowing. They're so comfortable. And they showed that in that win against Tottenham last time out. But they've got some big games coming up. United, they've got City twice in the FA Cup and the Premier League coming up. This seems like a very pivotal stretch for Arsenal. Just at the halfway point of the season, they've done wonderful to be at the top of the table now. But is this kind of the first big test to see how big they miss Gabriel Jesus, how big of a deal they actually are? Because you feel like United are going to ruffle their feathers a little bit this weekend.
I would normally say in this situation that Arsenal is due for a letdown. And I think they are soon due for a letdown. You guys watched at midweek that Manchester United Crystal Palace game. I feel like that took a lot out of them. And the question is, can Erik ten Hag rally them for this game? I think they're in a difficult position going to Arsenal, maybe a little bit of heavy legs, not able to put that game with the emphasis that they want. And so for me, that's the trick here, is Man United is really going to have to do the old pull itself up for the bootstraps situation here, because Arsenal, I think, is just sitting pretty, waiting for this opportunity at home in front of a building that should be electric.
And Andy, when we talk about Arsenal, we have to remember they played really well at Old Trafford in the reverse fixture earlier this season, but they lost and they got done on the counter. And it seems like United, that probably fits their plan pretty well, similar to how they beat Manchester City recently. Clip balls over the top, crowd midfield. We're going to talk about the options they got in midfield, but this seems to set up well tactically for Manchester United. But to Nick's point, maybe the energy's just been zapped from them a little bit with that midweek game, and Arsenal have had extra rest. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Arsenal and on Manchester United? Because they were so close to those 10 straight wins in all competitions. And I think solid but not spectacular would be sort of the summation of the job that Erik ten Hag has done so far, and a great job he's done.
Yeah, solid but not spectacular is a pretty spectacular job for the Manchester United manager based on the last decade of results that the club has had. Like, this is a huge and I don't say that to be funny either. Like, this is a huge progression from them finding the manager that they believe can actually build something, can actually build a project, not just someone to come in and fix things right away. Build a project, let him do that. And it seems like they are doing that. And obviously, moving on from Cristiano Ronaldo was the biggest thing, the biggest favor that the board could have done to Erik ten Hag. But yeah, they're a very functional team. I love their spine. The spine of that team has been a problem for, I don't know, probably since Ferguson left. They didn't have a defensive midfielder for years, and it was the number one thing we said every summer, every January: go buy a number 6, somebody to protect the back line, somebody to start possession going forward. Very, very simple premise, and everybody knows, like, that is it's almost the quarterback of the team. Everything operates and flows around them. And if you have that player, which they now have, he won't be available for this weekend, which is a problem. And I think adds another reason to why Arsenal are pretty big favorites in this game. They have a great spine with Varane and Martinez behind, Bruno and Eriksen going. Like, it's really, really solid through the middle. And so I think they're tough to beat now in a way that they've not been for years, because for so many years, they've been quite easy to beat.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you mentioned it there, Casemiro missing, obviously yellow card accumulation. That was a huge blow for Man United. I'm intrigued to see if Fred and Scott McTominay will both come in and kind of have Christian Eriksen there as well. I just try, as I said, just plug up the gaps in midfield and try and stop Odegaard, Xhaka, Partey from kind of controlling the tempo and just breaking it up. But for Arsenal, it's kind of as you were, right? Every weekend now, every game, we know the lineup they're going to roll out. And my only issue for them is tiredness and just, not giving Saka and Martinelli the rest that they need, especially as we hit all these cup competitions and Europa Leagues coming up and all the rest of it. So if they do get in someone like Leandro Trossard into that rotation, I'd feel a lot better as an Arsenal fan that those wide players can get the rest that they need. But when we talk about the title race, this is big, right? If United win here against Arsenal, I think they're back in it. And maybe they weren't ever in it to start with, but I think after beating Man City and then if they go and beat Arsenal as well, I mean, that's huge. And Nick, there's some comments coming in from Pep Guardiola as well, right, that you're focused on in terms of his comments after their win against Tottenham and how that might just shake up the title race a little bit. But Man City is still in there as well, of course, right?
I still think they're going to win it. I still think unless the Champions League really gets in the way fixture-wise, because we know that's their jewel, man, I think they're going to win it. Pep Guardiola coming out and basically trying to get his fans to get behind them at home, saying the traveling fans he loves them, but the home fans need to step up. Listen, I needed to see that from him because I needed to know that it was still burning in him. The contract extension said something special, that he wanted to stick around, but knowing that he's all in, I'm reinforced here. Arsenal's made me a believer that they can do it. Man United too. But I just think they're looking for a three-peat, which hasn't happened in so long. I still think they're going to find a way.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a 3-horse title race, which is going to be great. And I think this weekend, if United do beat Arsenal, then obviously that just chucks the cat amongst the pigeon even more. Prediction time. Andy, I'm going to come to you first this time. What are you going with for Arsenal against Man United?
2-0 Arsenal.
Wow. Pretty quick.
The injuries and playing midweek is going to be a massive, massive disadvantage.
And they score early. They can set the tempo just like they always seem to in games, right? And that will be, put a real spanner in the works for Manchester United. I'm going to go and be boring and say it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think Arsenal sometimes have just kind of come unstuck when think about the home game against Newcastle. Draw away at Southampton. I mean, they haven't come unstuck often this season, but I think sometimes without Gabriel Jesus in recent games, they just haven't looked as cohesive. And that's not knocking Eddie Nketiah. He's done a great job standing in, but Jesus has done such a great job just getting chances for other forwards that sometimes with a team as stubborn as Manchester United are this season, I just think Arsenal will find it harder to create chances this weekend. Nick, what about your prediction, mate?
I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal. I think it'll be a good game. You'll see that United's resolve and how much they've strengthened, but that Casemiro absence is just an awful lot with Martin Odegaard in those spaces, and I think that'll be the difference.
A Casemiro, you would say.
Casemiro! Joseph! I'm rubbing off.
All right, we're going to end the show now because it's not going to get much better now. But remember, head over to Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com for all the latest information, how to watch, team news, previews, predictions, analysis during and after the game. We'll have you covered here at PST. What a game. Arsenal against Man United, one of the classic games in the Premier League. And it's great to see both these teams right at the top of the table again and fighting for really big trophies throughout this campaign.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.